Sarah was a young woman who lived with her father, Chief Samuel. Her father was a widower because Sarah's mother had died some years back from cancer. Sarah was his only child, and because of that, Chief Samuel loved her very much. He did everything in his power to provide for her, even though life was not easy. He always wished his late wife was still alive to see how their daughter had grown into a fine young lady. Sarah had just finished school and was now serving as a corper in a nearby village school. Sarah loved teaching little children, as it was the only way she could forget about her suffering. It was in this school that Sarah met another corper named Chris. Chris was tall, dark, and always smiling. He was from the northern part of the country. His father had many wives, and Chris's mother was the sixth wife. Growing up in such a crowded family had not been easy for him, especially the fact that his father wasn't of any help to them. But he was always hard-working and respectful. One day, Sarah fell down while teaching in her classroom. She slipped on the dusty floor, and her books scattered everywhere. Chris, who was nearby, quickly rushed to help her. He stretched out his hand, lifted her up, and helped her pick her books. From that day, they began to walk together, talk together, and even sit together in the evenings under the mango tree near the school. Soon, they fell in love. The other corpers noticed and started teasing them, but they didn't mind. Sarah and Chris dreamed about the future. They talked about the kind of house they would live in and the children they would have. But when rumors of their relationship reached their families, it was not easy. Chief Samuel, Sarah's father, was not happy. He wanted his daughter to marry a rich man who would provide comfort and security. He often said, "Sarah, love is sweet, but money is important too. You cannot feed children with only love." But Sarah only smiled and told him, "Papa, Chris loves me. I love him too. We will struggle together and make a way." After a year of courtship, Chris called his uncles and some elders for the introduction ceremony. Sarah's family was surprised at how serious he was. Many neighbors whispered that the marriage would not last because they were both poor. But Sarah and Chris ignored them. They got married in a small but joyful ceremony. Married life was not easy for them at all. Chris worked as a teacher in a small village school, but his salary was very poor. To add to it, he also did menial jobs like farming for people and carrying loads just to make extra money. Sarah also taught in another village school, but her own salary was also small. Their combined earnings could hardly buy 3 square meals. Some days, they went to bed hungry, but they still laughed, prayed, and encouraged each other. One hot afternoon, Chris returned home from school tired and sweaty. He expected to meet Sarah tired as well, but instead, she ran to him with excitement. She hugged him tightly and shouted, "Chris! Our story has changed." Chris was confused. He looked at her face, trying to understand. "What happened, Sarah?" he asked. Sarah smiled widely and said, "Lisa, my old friend, helped me get a job. A big job in the city. I am going to be a secretary to a CEO of one of the biggest companies. My salary is 500,000 naira every month." Chris could not believe his ears. "What? 500,000? He repeated. Sarah nodded, with tears of joy in her eyes. Chris lifted her high in the air like a baby, laughing loudly. They both danced around their small house, praising God and thanking Lisa for the help. That night, they brought out all their savings. Instead of using the money to buy food as usual, they went to the market the next day to buy new clothes, shoes, and a handbag for Sarah to start her new work with. Within 1 week, Sarah began her new job in the city. Everyone in the company welcomed her warmly, including her boss. The office was clean, with air conditioners and computers, very different from the dusty classroom she was used to. She worked hard and proved herself. In only 3 months, Sarah had saved enough to rent a small house in the city. She and Chris moved in together so that she would not spend too much money on transport, and so Chris could also start searching for a better job in the city. Life finally seemed sweet. They bought small furniture, a bed, and even a small television. For the first time in their marriage, they could eat 3 square meals without worry. Chris was very proud of his wife, and Sarah was happy she could support her husband. Sarah was enjoying her new job in the big company. Every day, she tried her best to work hard and please her boss and other workers. But after some months, Sarah began to notice something strange. Her boss, Mr. Emeka, was treating her differently from the other workers. He was giving her special benefits that nobody else received. First, he suddenly doubled her salary without any warning. Then, he gave her a car allowance so that she would not have to struggle with buses every morning. Not long after, he even promoted her to a higher position in the company. One day, Mr. Emeka called her to his office and told her that he had bought a piece of land in the city. He said she could start paying little by little, and soon it would be hers. Sarah was surprised and happy, but at the same time she was confused. Why is my boss doing all this for me? She asked herself every night. When she told her husband Chris about all these blessings, Chris jumped up with joy. "Sarah, this is God's favor," he shouted. He hugged her tightly and thanked God for answering their prayers. Sarah smiled too, but deep down, she still felt that something was not right. As time went on, Chris took full charge of the building project on their new land. He supervised the construction of a 2-story building while Sarah kept providing the money. The building rose very fast, and within a few months, the workers were almost done. Sarah and Chris felt proud of themselves. "Look how far God has brought us," Chris would often say. One morning, Sarah woke up late. She rushed her bath, grabbed her bag, and hurried to the office. She was breathing heavily when she arrived, worried that her boss would scold her for being late. Just as she stepped into her office, one of her colleagues whispered, "Sarah, Mr. Emeka wants to see you right now." Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly arranged her hair and walked nervously to his office. She knocked gently on the door. "Come in," his deep voice said. She opened the door and greeted him. "Good morning, sir." "Close the door and sit down," he ordered. Sarah obeyed, her hands shaking slightly. "Why did you come late today?" he asked, staring into her eyes. Before she could explain, he stood up suddenly and walked towards her. Sarah froze. "Shh," he said, placing his finger on her lips. "Don't talk." "I'm the one talking." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. He moved his hand slowly from her lips to her neck, brushing against her necklace. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, feeling her heart beat fast. Then he bent down and tried to peck her cheek. Immediately, Sarah jumped up shouting, "Jesus!" Her voice shook as she cried, "Sir, I am married! Please stop this!" Mr. Emeka stepped back, embarrassed for a moment. But then he began to speak softly. "Sarah, you are as beautiful as a queen. You deserve to be treated like one. If you can satisfy me, I will give you everything your precious husband cannot give you. Money, comfort, power, anything you want." Sarah's face turned red with anger. She removed his hand from her waist and said firmly, "Sir, I cannot cheat on my husband. Please, never try this again." Then she picked up her bag and rushed out of his office, her legs trembling. That evening she told Chris everything that had happened. But instead of being worried, Chris just laughed. Sarah, don't mind your boss. Just focus on your job. This is one of the devil's tricks to distract you. Forget about him. Sarah shook her head. Chris, I don't think you understand. This man is serious. But Chris dismissed her fears. He never took the matter seriously, and that made Sarah restless. She started hearing stories from other workers in the office. Some whispered that Mr. Emeka had slept with almost all the female staff. Others said that was why many of them had cars and houses. Sarah became more disturbed. She prayed every day, asking God to protect her from falling into temptation. She avoided being alone with him, but Mr. Emeka never gave up. He would send her private messages, call her late at night, and always found a way to touch her hands or shoulders in the office. Sarah continued to resist him, but it was becoming harder. Then one day, everything changed. Mr. Emeka stormed into her office, his face dark and angry. He leaned over her table and said in a low, sharp voice, Sarah, I have been patient with you. But if you keep refusing me, then get ready to lose your job and all the benefits I gave you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Sir, please. She tried to speak, but he cut her short. No excuses, he shouted. This weekend, I am hosting a night party. Meet me there and give me what I want, or else forget about this job, your salary, your car allowance, and even that land. Everything will go. The choice is yours with that. He turned angrily, slammed the door behind him, and left. Sarah sat frozen in her chair, her heart pounding. The whole room seemed to spin around her. For the first time since she started working, she felt weak and helpless. That evening, Sarah came home with tears rolling down her cheeks. Her eyes were swollen and her heart was heavy. She went straight into their room and laid on the bed, staring at the ceiling without saying a word. Not long after, Chris came back from the construction site where their house was being built. He was excited to tell Sarah about the progress. But when he entered their room, he saw her lying quietly with tears on her face. His smile disappeared. My love, what happened? He asked in a worried voice, rushing to her side. He held her shoulders and tried to comfort her. At first, Sarah didn't want to speak, but then she broke down and explained everything. She told him what her boss, Emeka, had said, how he had been harassing her, and how he gave her an ultimatum to either please him at his party that weekend or lose her job and all the benefits. I warned you, Chris, Sarah said in pain. I told you earlier that this man was not normal, but you never took me seriously. Chris stood up suddenly and rushed into the bathroom. Sarah heard the sound of water running as he bent under the tap, washing his head as though trying to clear his thoughts. Later that night, Sarah woke up and noticed Chris was not in bed. She looked around and saw him sitting at the dining table with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. He was pouring himself glass after glass, drinking silently, his eyes red with worry. Sarah walked up to him gently and touched his back. My love, are you still worried about what I told you earlier? Don't you trust me? I would never do such a thing. Maybe this is God's own way of telling me to leave this job. Chris looked up slowly, his face heavy. Sarah, I am not ready for us to lose our only source of income. You know we are almost done paying for the land and the building. We only need a few more months. Then our life will be balanced. I cannot go back to that poverty we suffered before. Sarah froze. What do you mean by that? Chris swallowed hard and said the words that broke her heart. Maybe you should just consider doing it once. Only this once. After that, you can leave the job. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. She pulled her hand away and screamed, "Chris! So you want to sell your wife's body for money? Is this what our marriage has become?" Chris tried to hold her hands again. No, Sarah, you don't understand. I'm not selling you. I'm only saying we should sacrifice just once so we can finish our house. Please, it won't repeat again. But Sarah shook her head in disappointment. She stood up, sighed deeply, and went back to bed. She turned her back to him and closed her eyes, though her heart was crying inside. The next day, Sarah's boss kept sending her reminders. "Remember, this weekend. It's either yes or no." His words echoed in her ears. On the other side, Chris kept on pleading with her, telling her not to lose the job. When Sarah couldn't take it anymore, she went to meet her friend Lisa, the same friend who had helped her get the job. She poured out her heart, expecting comfort. But Lisa only laughed softly and said, "Girl, why are you stressing yourself? If your husband is comfortable with it, then just do it. After all, you have no choice. If it were me, I would have done it a long time ago." Sarah's eyes turned sharp. "Lisa, please don't insult my husband. He is a good man." Lisa raised her hands quickly. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to look out for you." After much thought, Sarah finally said, "Okay, I will go to the party. But only if you follow me." Lisa grinned mischievously. "Come on, girl, let's rock this. You know I've always been ready for fun since our secondary school days." Sarah shook her head, half smiling. "Lisa, you've never changed. Still the same playful girl." When the party night came, Sarah dressed in a simple gown that looked too religious for such an event. Lisa kept laughing at her. "Hubba, Sarah, are you going for church service or a party?" Sarah only smiled faintly. "Lisa, just leave me. I know what I'm doing." As they entered the party hall, music was blasting, people were dancing, and drinks were flowing everywhere. Not long after, Mr. Emeka spotted her. He walked straight to her, laughing. He touched her hand and said, "I knew you would come." Emeka led Sarah into his private room, leaving Lisa behind. Inside, he poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Sarah. He took a sip and began to flirt. Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her face calm. She forced a small smile. Slowly, she reached into her purse and pulled out a set of papers. "Could you sign these for me?" she asked sweetly. "They're company documents, and they need to be signed today." Emeka, lost in his own excitement and too distracted by the moment, didn't bother to read. He picked up the pen and scribbled his signature. He had no idea he had just signed an open check and a document that confirmed Sarah had fully paid for her land. Still, he tried to rush at her body, but Sarah cleverly pushed him onto the bed. She whispered, "Remove your clothes and wait for me." Like a hungry dog, he obeyed, rolling on the bed. Quickly, Sarah picked her purse and slipped out of the room. Lisa, wondering why Sarah was taking so long, decided to check on her. She opened the door, only to meet Emeka in his drunken state. Before she could escape, he rushed at her like a hungry lion and dragged her onto the bed. That night, Sarah refused to tell her husband anything. Chris noticed her silence and tried to comfort her. "My love, you did this for us. It was for our own good." But Sarah just closed her eyes, refusing to speak, her heart torn between anger and confusion. The next morning, when Sarah got to work, the first thing she saw on her desk was a white envelope. She opened it slowly, and her eyes widened. It was a sack letter. She had been dismissed immediately from her job. Her heart raced, but she didn't cry. She already knew why. She walked boldly into his office and said with a sly smile, "You haven't seen anything yet, Emeka." She laughed and stormed out of the office, dropping all the official benefits, her car keys, her ID card, everything, on the table, and walked out proudly. From the office, she went straight to the bank. With the open check that Emeka had signed in his drunken state, she transferred a huge amount of money into her secret account. Then she sent Emeka a message. "Thank you for the money." When Emeka read the message, he almost collapsed. He was shocked, broken, and devastated. But Sarah didn't look back. She was free. Later that day, her friend Lisa called her. But instead of congratulating her, Lisa shouted, "Sarah, you are a bad friend. You left me in that room with Emeka. Do you know what happened to me that night?" Sarah only laughed. "But Lisa, you are the one that said if it were you, you would do it long ago. So why are you complaining now?" Lisa went silent for a moment and then hung up the phone angrily. From that day, their friendship ended. That evening, when Chris came home, she told him she had been sacked and that she escaped the trap. But instead of being happy that his wife was safe, Chris grew furious. "Our lives are ruined, Sarah," he shouted. "We are back to square one. No job, no income. What will we eat now?" Sarah's eyes widened in shock at his outburst. "So, Chris," she said quietly, "after all I have done, all you still care about is money?" She then told him about the money she had managed to gather, the check, and the benefits she secured. But she didn't smile. She walked into her room, feeling deeply disappointed. She remembered how she had rejected many rich men just to marry Chris because of love, yet he was still choosing money over her. That night, Chris tried to beg her. "Sarah, I only want the best for us. Please, forgive me." But Sarah was too hurt. She left their bedroom and slept in another room. From that day, things changed. Sarah began to avoid Chris. She would dress up at night, sometimes looking like a prostitute, and go out. She refused to cook, and she started posting pictures of different men on her social media pages. Whenever Chris asked her where she was going, she would just laugh. "Why are you complaining? You were the one that gave me liberty to sleep with another man, so let me enjoy myself." Chris was heartbroken. He became a shadow of himself, thin and weak. He missed the Sarah who used to love and care for him. For the first time, he realized that true love was better than all the money in the world. Yes, they were now wealthy, but their marriage was empty. There was no love, no peace, no communication. One evening, Chris sat alone in the dark. He thought of ending his life. But then he decided to go to Sarah's father, Chief Samuel, to explain everything and beg for help. When he arrived at the chief's house, he knelt down and cried, "Papa, I have failed your daughter. Please help me beg her to forgive me." At first, Sarah's father was very angry. "Chris, I warned Sarah not to marry a poor man. And now look at the mess." But after much pleading, the chief sighed and said, "All right. Tomorrow, I will come with you to talk to my daughter the next day." Chief Samuel sat with Sarah and begged her, "My daughter, please forgive your husband. He has realized his mistake." Sarah looked at her father quietly, then turned to Chris. Her eyes were sharp but calm. "Papa, should I tell him the truth?" Chris blinked. "What truth?" Sarah sighed deeply. "I am pregnant. But are you ready to accept the pregnancy of another man?" Chris's eyes widened in shock. He froze. "What?" "Sarah, no, please don't say that." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "Even if it is another man's child, I will accept it. I just want my wife back." At that moment, Sarah looked at her father, and they both burst into laughter. Chris was confused. Sarah smiled gently. "Chris, I only said that to teach you a lesson. I am pregnant, yes, but the child is yours. All those nights I went out, I was only going to Papa's house to sleep. I never went to any man." Chris gasped, then dropped on his knees, crying. He hugged Sarah tightly. Thank you. I'm so sorry." He bent down and kissed her tummy. "Daddy is here, my baby." Just then the door opened, and all of Chris's family members entered, shouting, "Surprise!" They were laughing and clapping. Sarah explained, "They all knew about my plan. I just wanted you to learn your lesson, that money can never be more important than love." Chris was still in shock. "So, all of you knew? Even when I was thinking of killing myself?" Sarah held his face firmly. "No, not my husband. Not the father of my unborn child. Never." Everyone laughed together, and Chris realized that he had been given a second chance. From that day, their story became a lesson to many. People in the village and city said, "True love is the most priceless thing on earth. Money can buy a house, but it cannot buy peace or trust." And so Sarah and Chris lived on, stronger than before, with a new understanding of what true love really means.